we feel the obligation to give back to the younger generation, but not everybody does. And the truth of the matter is we're getting real close to losing a lot of our talented people. All that old practical knowledge will forever be something that is part of our business.
So go back to your ham thing. So you had a call sign, was it same as your grandpa's? Or?
So no, that was like a very specific, like you have to work to get all this like checked out on Morse code and all these things.
So what were you piggyback
he
on
gave
him?
He got me a little,
a fake one.
He got me a little name tag to match his that said grandson of W8RVR. So that's what I was known as.
Well, actually, you talk about that. You asked what I listened to with my dad.
Yeah.
So my dad was a longtime truck driver. Okay. So he didn't have ham radios, but he had CB radios in every car with all the whip antennas and all.
So he was good on like the CB jargon.
Gosh, yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. As a truck driver, of course he was.
That
His
is
CB
awesome.
handle was Speed Demon.
Speed Demon?
Yeah.
So he was over the road long haul trucker.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So he spent all kinds of windshield time.
Oh yeah.
He got tons of it. Those guys, I've known a few of those people in my life, and it's amazing how they can recall exactly where everything is at, exits, truck stops. This is the one you want to stop at. You know, you could tell like, man, you spent a lot of time on the road, brother. So I feel like I can kind of do that now about just like airports and places that we go in and out of all the time. But yeah, you do it enough, you just kind of get that like muscle memory.
Oh yeah. No, I'm that way in my travels.
Yeah.
I have certain hotels I stay at, certain restaurants I go to every time I'm in that town.
Me too.
It's funny.
So
if you start going back by, you know, when the hotel staff says, "Oh, welcome back," you're like, maybe I've been here too many times.
Yeah. Yeah. They know you by name.
Yeah.
The old Norm, you know, cheers.
Yep.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting, but that was a lot of great memories growing up doing that kind of stuff. And, you know, the ham radio, you know, type things. And growing up for me, in the backseat of my car, you know, the music that I grew up on was like Creedence Clearwater Revival, you know, Led Zeppelin, and then maybe throw in a little Elton John in there too, you know, at the height of his career and all those things. It was just like, that's David Bowie, you know, that's what I go into now.
Yeah.
That stuff will still pop up for me. And, you know, Jimi Hendrix, all of those things. So going into high school, before I had my own kind of style, that's kind of what was leading me through those earlier years. And then that morphed into everything else that I did now. If I was to say now, I'm more of a country guy.
Pretty big time span there to jump from when you went to high school and Creedence Clearwater Revival and Jimi Hendrix.
But that's what my dad was listening to.
Oh, okay.
And if I was to put up a picture of John Fogerty of 1974 and a picture of my dad in his senior year of high school, you'd think it was the same person. They looked exactly alike.
Did they have the same habits?
Yeah, well, no, they did not have the same habits. They're completely different there. But, you know, I love all that like Southern rock kind of style music. It still influences where I'm at now, like with, you know, Stapleton and things like that, you know, with the mainstream guys. But
it's funny you say the posters. It's like I told you, my dad was a truck driver, right?
Yeah.
So my dad, if you can imagine, Burt Reynolds and Smokey and the Bandit.
Mm-hmm. Pretty cool.
That was my dad's. That was my dad's wardrobe: bell-bottom pants, cowboy boots, crazy black cowboy hat. He thought he was Smokey and the Bandit.
I think so much of that stuff. Obviously, it makes you who you are today. You know, it makes you the type of person you are and who you turn into, what you're into, and you know. And then now it's like I look at that and see, like, you know, what are my kids going to be into?
Oh yeah.
You know, what are they going to get into? And a lot of it they pick up just from your day-to-day life. And then there's other things that you can kind of like strategically place in there and hope that it does something good and they take it and run with it. But yeah, it's interesting raising kids and, you know, coming from that. I think the real world perspective is important to know that, you know, you're influencing somebody.
Oh yeah.
Every day.
People are always watching.
People are always watching. Yeah, people are always watching. And a lot of times you just take that as like, you know, what you do. But really, for whatever reason, I've always looked at it differently. I've looked at it like it's kind of a big obligation to make sure you're doing the right things because of who's watching you, right? Like, who are you influencing? Not so much like who's influencing me.
Yep.
And it probably becomes less important as you get older. But, you know, I think even in like what we do every day, right? In aviation, right? I think we would all agree that we have like this problem right now where we need more people getting interested in going into aviation.
Oh yeah.
Mechanics, pilots, everything that's involved with aviation, ground people, air traffic controllers, everything like that. For whatever reason, it just seems like we need to make that cooler for younger people so that they spark some interest. And we try and do things and go to high schools and colleges and do job fairs and things like that. But, I think if we create opportunities and make the pathway easier for young people to get into and say, hey, you can do this. It's a great career. I think people at this stage in our career, we have an obligation to try and do that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you there. What, when you were a kid growing up, a young Adam Beach, and someone said, Adam, what are you going to be when you grow up? Would you have said aviation, or would you have been like ham radio operator, or I don't know.
I wanted to be a professional hunter when I grew up. I spent so much time in the woods as a younger kid in northern Michigan. I spent all of my, so let me back up. I grew up in Southwest Michigan, and my mom and dad, and we lived in Southwest Michigan, but my mom and dad were both career people. And I have a younger sister who's 7 years younger than me, but most of our summers when we got out of school, it was like we were too young to stay home by ourselves, even though back in the 80s, you could let your kids, run the streets till 10, 11 o'clock, no problem. But what we did is we would go up to northern Michigan and stay with my grandparents, for a good part of the summer. And my grandma and grandpa lived on a 40-acre plot of land. It was all wooded. It was like prime hunting, fishing kind of situation. And so I looked forward to that, man. So when school got out, like the next week, we were on our way up north. I was going to stay there for like a minimum of 2 weeks and then maybe come home for a week and then go back up for a period of time. But I was in the woods. I mean, I was building forts and teepees out in the woods and getting sticks and, shooting frogs in the ditch with my pellet gun. And so if you would have asked me when I was about 10, 12 years old, some people are like firefighter, police officer, doctor, I wanted to be in the woods as much as possible. But, as far as like my professional career, the way that it went, getting into aviation, I really got that love early on from my grandfather. And he was a pilot, had his private pilot's license. We spent, outside of the ham radio swap meets, we spent a lot of time at the little local municipal airport in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Shout out Mount Pleasant. So, but we spent a lot of time up there. He would take me over. They had buddies at the airport. So you know how it is. You go to a small airport, you're with your grandpa.
All his buddies.
And it's just a matter of time before somebody's like, let's go up flying. And that's when I really kind of started getting the itch. And I really liked airplanes. I didn't know I was going to make it a career at the time. But that's where I kind of got started. And then, of course, I grew up in, an area where there was a lot of great aviation companies right there. I started practically right out of high school, about 19 years old when I got my first professional aviation job. Mostly because I just needed a job and college wasn't working out for me. And I didn't want to live with my parents forever, honestly. So, I was like, hey, I'd like to get my own place someday. So I started working and doing like modifications on business jets. And
who did you work for up there?
I started at Duncan Aviation in
Battle Creek.
In Battle Creek. Yeah. Great company. And again, I was 19. I didn't know anything about anything. But I knew how to show up on time for work and, worked hard and created a lot of opportunities through those years. Ended up staying there in Battle Creek for 14 years working at Duncan. Really got to know the business well. Had some great mentors in my life, which I'd like to talk about eventually too. But like that was it. I would not be where I am today without some of the mentors in my life that said, hey, this is really the business and this is how you're successful in it. And then about 2014, I got an opportunity through Duncan to move out to Utah with my family. And so we packed everything up, and I felt like I could have about killed my mother because I was taking her grandkids away from her. I think we actually packed up the the moving truck and we left Michigan for Utah, having never been there before, on Mother's Day. So I probably could have picked a better day to leave, but it was Mother's Day weekend and we were heading down the road.
You were trashing her whole world, taking her grandbaby.
I know. And it was hard to have perspective at that time. Like, are we doing the right thing? But my wife and I both were from that area. All of our family lived there. It was like generational.
Okay.
There's like some areas that like some people they grow up there, they stay there, they live there their whole life, they raise their kids and they expect their kids to stay there. And that's kind of how we thought it was going to go for us. But we moved out to Utah, and I'll tell you what, that was hands down the best decision we ever made in our life for so many reasons. I don't have time to talk about all of them, but to take a chance to do something that you don't know how it's going to work out in the long run, and to work real hard at it and then to see it turn into success. And so, yeah, we moved out to Utah, right outside of Provo, Utah, just a little bit south of Salt Lake. And continued working for Duncan there for another 10 years and did a lot of great things there and just so grateful for those opportunities. Still have lifelong friends with that company, but then just about a year and a half ago, transitioned over to Stevens and full-time, RM on the road warrior. And it's been great, man.
Oh, yeah.
It's been really phenomenal. So, but tell me about you. I'm interested to hear your story.
I was curious. So Grandpa got you around the airplanes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What Mom and Dad, what'd they do?
So
what was their career path? I mean, what did they do or still do? I guess.
Yeah, and I guess that's an important part. My mom was a lifelong. She did like account management for Kellogg's, which the cereal company, and so. You know how every town kind of has like the big company that a lot of people work at. Battle Creek is certainly known as Cereal City.
Oh yeah.
And so a lot of people come from the cereal industry there, but she was pretty cool. That looking back, that's where I think I got my love for travel. Because I really love being on the road and traveling and, I hate being away from my family, but at the same time, I really like being on the move. She did a lot of traveling. And I had an opportunity when I was
for the job
for work, and she would take me on some business trips, and she was managing accounts, down in like Atlanta area and kind of all over the South, into Florida, things like that. And so I went on a few trips with her, and I got to see the other side of the business, her business, where this is actually a job. People do this. They go on the road and. She wasn't full-time on the road, but occasionally she would go. And then my dad is actually a lifelong educator. He's a teacher.
Really?
Yeah, still to this day, still teaching.
What grade? What age group?
In mid-Michigan. He's a high school history teacher.
Ooh, God bless him.
Yeah. So, and I tell you what, God bless our teachers.
Yeah.
Because they do not get the credit that they deserve.
Nope.
There's so many professions like that, but teachers is definitely one of them. All of them should have pay increases today and for what they deal with, but he is what I would call a true educator. Like he is in teaching because he loves teaching. Some teachers, I think it's turned into a job for them. They get into it. They're just looking for something to do and they go into education but there's still a few of them out there who do it for the love of teaching. They want to mold the minds of young people. And, God bless them. So, And they're still doing that to this day. My mom's retired now and she lives full-time up in Mount Pleasant area, Michigan, mid-Michigan. But we try to get up there as much as we can to see him.
Oh
yeah. Aviation definitely came from my grandfather though. And, it was kind of funny. We used to get these things every year. We would get these really nice, this is going back a long time ago. Every year around Christmas, the company that I worked for would hand out these like really nice calendars, warbird calendars. And they were quite big, but like every page that you opened up had this like really quality picture of some really cool warbird.
Let's go.
And it had the calendar on the bottom side, right? Back when people used to use something other than their iPhone to schedule their life.
Yeah.
And so I would always take that calendar and I always take it up and give it to my grandpa, and he would cut those pictures out and he would frame them. And so he had them hanging up all over his house when, for the rest of his life.
That's
You
cool.
just have them hanging out. I got a few of them at home hanging up at my house too. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I don't think if we've worked together for a year and a half, a little over now. I don't think I've ever asked you what your parents did.
No,
I've heard you talk
we
about
don't get
the
into
grandpa
it very often.
Yeah.
Yeah, grandpa's a big part of it. Because it's aviation specific. But yeah, you start diving a little bit deeper. Even just like explaining that story to you, you can kind of say like, "Oh man, that's probably where I get that from."
Yeah,
because that goes back to that on stage, kind of mentality. Like somebody's always watching. Well, I was watching growing up too, and I was taking little bits and pieces of what I saw around me in the peripheral and applying it to my life, like things I'd like to do someday. And, hopefully everybody gets an opportunity to do something that they love.
Well, that's one thing about aviation. I think you get in aviation and you're going to do one of two things. You're going to hate it.
Yeah.
Or you're going to love it and embrace it. And I think, you learn real quick if you're an aviation guy, if it's your jam, if it's your gig to be in aviation, because you get a lot out of it, but it takes a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people get in it and they like the cool factor, the draw, but it's a demanding job. It's a demanding industry,
Mm-hmm.
but, and they're like, this is a little more than it's not quite what I bargained for.
There's an easier way to make a living.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, there definitely is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right. It's, just like what I was explaining about my dad being a teacher, there's people who go into it because they have a passion for it.
Yeah.
And there's people who go into it just because it's a job.
Yeah, a lot of similarities there. Yeah. I would agree. If you really want to help the kids and see them grow, or if you're just there to get tenure or whatever and just collect a paycheck,
Yeah. Yeah. The people who really do well, I think, in our industry are folks who they can link it somehow to a passion that they have in their life. And, still to this day, I mean, we're on the road all the time. We talk to people all the time. I was just, in Miami last week at a convention, and I was talking to a young gal at breakfast, and, naturally, I was just like, how'd you get into aviation?
Yep.
She might've been mid-20s. She's kind of in like aviation law.
Whoa.
I said, okay, how'd you get into that? Right. Well, she was going down the law path, and then an aviation gig opportunity presented itself and she went into it, but she found the love of aviation after she got there. But I think for the folks who find themselves in this business and there's not some kind of a passion link to it there, not that they won't be successful, because you can certainly be successful wherever you go.
Oh yeah.
But you're not getting the full, like the full experience. It's like that, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life kind of a thing. Trust me, I love aviation. There's days that suck, that are awful.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I still love the business. I love being around people who talk,
Oh yeah.
talk the lingo. We have similar experiences. I think the younger generations, when they see stuff like that and they hear guys like us talk, and a big reason why I think that this show is so important is that we can get the message out there a little bit more about our industry, and people can look at it like, hey, that's a pretty viable career path. Maybe I should look into it. How do I get it? That's the first part. And the second part is we need to make some easy pathway opportunities for young folks to get in. We cannot make it difficult for people to get into this business. We got to figure out a way to make it as easy as possible for them to get started.
Yeah. It's funny. You talk about the love and the passion. I think the industry's got better as a whole. I don't know about you, but when I started back in 1987,
Mm-hmm.
my first aviation job was like $6.80 an hour.
Yeah.
Now we've done better. We're getting pay up, but back then you had to love what you were doing because you weren't making much money. You could work a lot of overtime, and overtime was always there to make the money. But
sure,
we've done better as an industry. But yeah, I remember the pay wasn't there in the beginning. It was once I got around it, I never was had anybody expose me to aviation in my family. Like I told you earlier, my dad
Truck driver. Yeah.
was a truck driver. My grandpa was truck driver. All my uncles are truck drivers. And if you run into me in my teens and said, "Hey, what are you going to do?" I'm going to be a truck driver.
Yeah.
I'm going to own my own truck and drive trucks. That's all I'm going to do. I got an aviation applying for a truck driving job.
No kidding.
Yep.
Tell me about that. How did that come about?
So out of high school, and back then you looked through the newspaper to find a job. You reminded me a while ago that when I had my license, you were 4. So I don't know. I have to take you back. Take you back in time a little bit.
Yeah.
So back then,
we're old souls now, but yeah.
Yeah. But you looked through the newspaper for jobs, and so I'm flipping through the newspaper, in the general help section, and I found this one for a truck driver, little propeller shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, looking for someone to ride around their pickup truck and go pick up airplane propellers, bring them back to the shop to be overhauled.
So you were a runner, or did you have like a hands-on job in the?
So I went. This is back when you went to the place and hey, I see your ad in the paper, and you filled out the application and the interview all was in one whack, right? So you sit there and you fill out the application and you're putting all your experience down on it. And I've always been mechanically inclined. My dad being a truck driver and had his own trucks, and we were always working or tinkering on something. So I'm putting down on the back of the application there, all my experience. I'd taken automotive in school and stuff. And the owner of the company who did the interviewing, believe it or not, then he's like, "You got a lot of mechanical experience." It's like, "You sure you want to drive the truck?" I'm thinking, yeah, I'm 18 years old, man. I'm going to ride around your truck and no one's going to bother me. I'm going to listen to the radio.
That's one thing you know how to do.
Yeah. I don't want to be bothered with people. So I'll just go pick up your propellers and bring them back. And he's like, "Well, I need someone in the shop too. I could pay you a little bit more." I'm like, "Whoa, now you got my attention." So actually I stumbled into aviation applying for a truck driver job.
Yeah.
So, I got hired by a little propeller shop. As a blade grinder. I ground propeller blades in a little room about half the size of our little studio here that we're in.
Wow.
Used to come out looking like a tin man.
All just covered
aluminum dust all over you and
dust.
Still wasn't thinking aviation at that time as a career. Back then in 87, I'm sitting here now with 38 years in aviation. Even back then, I'm like, it was a job, making money. I was 18. I had my whole life in front of me. So I was like, but I got to know more around the airplanes through that. Started disassembling the propellers and putting them back together, and then working or taking them, put them back on the airplanes. And I was like, this is pretty cool. Cause nobody in my family, ever aviation at all, ever. Just was
professional.
It was never on anybody's radar
or anything like that.
And, but worked around the airplanes and, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, had a chance, a couple years after I took that job and got on with a bigger company, Piedmont Aviation out of Winston-Salem.
Oh, nice.
Which was owned by Piedmont Airlines. They were looking for a propeller mechanic, as well in the newspaper still. And, went over and interviewed with them and got a job with them working on big propellers on, big G1 aircraft, you may not know what a G1 is. I'm not sure.
I actually do know what a G1 is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So got on with them and started working on the big prop, so to speak. And from there, still didn't have an AMP yet, but tearing down the big props, putting them back together, became a road mechanic for that company. And then I was like, you know what? At that point, then I started seeing, I could see me in that, sticking with it and making a future out of it. And decided to get my AMP. By that time, life came along. I was married, had a kid.
It's funny how that happens.
Yeah. And didn't have time to go back to school to get an AMP license, so I did it the on the job way, through the FARs, and built the logbook and got signed off and took the test, and still working on propellers. Had climbed up from just mechanic to crew chief and some other stuff, and was getting in some leadership roles and starting to take on some more responsibilities, and still not making a ton of money. But I'm like, I got this AMP license. I can do a lot more now than just do propellers, and kind of took a leap of faith and transferred to one of our other locations as a mechanic, and it really took off from there. Started working on more business type aircraft, King Airs, jets, and things like that.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, a local company down in Greensboro, one company shut down. One company's misfortune leads to another, a good thing, right? So one of the textile companies down there, Burlington Industries, was shutting down their flight department, and there was going to be a vacant hangar. And one of our customers there where I worked at Piedmont in Greensboro, they opted to try to get into the hangar, and they hired me and another guy. That was my first dip into the corporate world back in, it's probably 2001.
Wow.
When I went corporate, and I started working on just we had 3 beach jets, 2 400As and a straight 400. And that was my first delve into corporate world. And I'm like, now this is pretty cool. 3 airplanes to work on and take care of that.
You said in 2001?
Yeah, it was about 2001.
And then life changed for aviation shortly after that, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. But it's funny because, I talked about the pay in the industry. I'll tell you, everybody in the industry knows, usually everybody tries to get corporate, right? Everybody wants to go corporate. And my first job was Jefferson Pilot Financial. They're no longer even there. They hired me for, I think it was $65,000 a year. And I thought, man,
you were in.
Oh yeah, I thought I'd arrived, right? Making big money finally, making big money because what's that? $30 an hour.
It's pretty good.
It was.
Jeez, that's great.
But so I did that and stayed with them, and I was there we got bought, but I mean overall I was there till 2019. Jefferson Pilot Financial and Lincoln Financial merged together, and got some different airframes and moved up into the DOM realm, and did that, ran a few 145 shops. And then I guess in 2021, 2022, something like that, had the opportunity to come do what we're doing now, sales, right? I got run into to the president of Stevens at MBAA of all places out in Vegas. I was out there, and I knew a lot of people, like you said, the people you meet in this industry, you can't say enough about people and opportunity they give you and sharing knowledge.
It's such a relational business.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, me and him, when I transferred to Greensboro in Piedmont, he was the GM there. And there again, always a good relationship, always known each other. I even tell people nowadays, this is the biggest, smallest industry you'll ever work in.
That's so true. That is so true. And you make an interesting point there too. And what going back to the beginning of that story, it sounds like you got in and you just started working hard.
Yeah.
And you didn't have a whole life plan laid out in front of you. And I think there's a lot of similarities in our story there. I had a few things that I was kind of interested in, airplanes and stuff like that when I was younger, but I didn't have a career path. I wasn't going out looking for, aviation specific careers.
Yeah.
I just needed a job, but I knew how to work hard.
Yeah.
And I wasn't afraid of that. And and I knew you had to kind of build it up. I feel you can't teach that, right?
No.
That's part of the problem right now is you've got to have a strong work ethic to be in this business. And I don't care what part of the business here, if you're hands-on with the aircraft, if you're in the back office, if you're sales, if you're, the back shops, paint, interior, avionics, doesn't matter what, you have to understand what aviation is as a whole. Yeah. And, it's safety driven, number one. So you got to do super high quality work.
Oh yeah.
And then also it's tight downtimes.
Oh yeah.
For everything, because we all know this. Everybody listening to this show who knows aviation, you understand you're under an extreme amount of pressure.
Oh yeah.
All the time.
Absolutely.
And you kind of have to learn how to deal with that and work through it. And not everybody's cut out for that. Some people want to come in and just do a job and go home and not think about that job till they show back up. Yeah, maybe I'm speaking for myself, but this is just, you can never put it down. You're thinking about it all the time. And my wife sometimes helps me put it down when I get home. And she's like, you're just talking about airplane stuff at home. We're trying to eat dinner. Right. She's like, we don't want to listen to airplane stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Okay.
Well, it's funny just what you're saying. I mean, through my career, again, a lot of good relationships. I've worked with some of the smartest people. You just look at these people and go, man, that's you want to be them, and they freely share that knowledge and that space with you and let you learn, and you're a sponge and you take it from them. And that's helped me. And I've been lucky enough by a few people and been had a few been in a few magazines, done a few articles about me. And one I was in, where I'm heading with this is the guy asked me, he goes, what would you tell someone? And I said, what do you mean? He's like, what would you tell them about aviation and the seriousness of it? I said, without sounding arrogant, I'm like, we work in an industry where we're not allowed to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as mechanics, AMPs and guys wrenching these airplanes, I mean, you don't get a do-over.
Right.
We're not like anybody, at 30,000 feet, you don't pull over to the side of the road.
Yeah.
And go, let me call here this guy
That's
because he left this loose, or this wasn't right. I mean, so and that's not meant arrogantly, but we don't have room for mistakes.
Right.
And even if you make a mistake in the hangar, I mean, it's expensive.
Yeah, it is.
It gets noticed. It gets amplified real quick.
And when you're doing such a high volume of work, some of these larger MROs across the country now, like Stevens, I don't want to be the guy that says like, you start doing more and more work and larger scale work and everything. It's just a matter of time. That's an unacceptable answer in this industry. But I think it's really important for us to always understand that, right? Everybody that comes in, from the new guy that's hiring on today, he needs to understand that this is serious business, right? And it takes all of us. And so I remember seeing just walking through a hangar.
Yeah.
I can't walk through an aircraft hangar right now without just, looking around at everything. So you see a guy on a ladder, and there's a guy over there moving a scissor lift around a, tail of an airplane. And, it's really just about mitigation, right? How can we improve our chances of not making mistakes the most? And so when you're doing movement around aircraft, whether that be toolboxes or ladders or scissor lifts or, moving an aircraft itself in and out of a hangar, you got to have people there. You got to have spotters. You got to have a process in place to try and limit the mistakes, because if you bump that airplane just a little bit, that's an expensive mistake.
Oh yeah.
And we're not even talking about the actual hands-on work, the actual maintenance that's being performed on the airplane. You're right. Yeah. You got to have process. You got to document everything. Everybody has to know what you're doing. You have to make sure you're not overworking these guys, which is hard in this business because it is a high pressure business. But you've got that, those human factors, which we talk about all the time in aviation, where it's contradictory to each other. We push people incredibly hard, but then at the same time, we tell them that they're not allowed to make a mistake.
Yeah.
And those two things will kind of work. You got those guys, some of those guys will come in and they'll ask for as much overtime as you can give them. And I've actually had guys, that have worked for me in the past where, they're running on their 20th, 25th straight consecutive 10, 12-hour day.
Oh yeah.
And then, I think that's where leadership has to step in and really say,
time out.
You need to take 2 days off.
Yeah.
Go home, recharge the batteries, get your head straight, see your kids, because there has to be a limit on how much we ask. We ask a lot already, but we need to also monitor that. There's a lot of burnout's a very real thing in aviation, and when I got my start, I was in the mods department. Working, interior refurbishments and things like that. And I'm not going to say that that's necessarily a life or death situation always. I mean, it's part of the show, and you're part of the overall process, but the guys that are, R&R and an engine on that airplane, or, maybe taking flight controls off, putting them back on, rigging, things like that, throttle cables, avionics, people, that are in there into the brains of the airplane, working that kind of stuff. We've got to be so process driven in this that we just got a time tested system that you stick to the book, right? You follow procedures,
No, you got to.
You follow the manuals, you do all these things. Yes, we need to send our people out for training. Yes, we need to make sure we're, monitoring their work-life balance, if you can even call it that. But But at the same time, it's a wonderful industry. Yes, there are risks, and it tends to be pretty bad when something does happen. But all of us carry that responsibility to be watching out for the greater good.
Oh yeah.
And
Well,
so,
you were talking about earlier about being inviting, and I think though once we get new talent into the industry,
mhm.
and they start understanding the severity of it, I think sometimes that pushes them out because again, we can't make mistakes. Um, we do deal with people's lives, and a lot of people just can't handle. They can't function in that kind of environment with that kind of pressure.
Yeah, yeah. Not
Um,
everybody's cut out for it.
we've done good. We've done great, I think, of the industry because again, when I started, there wasn't SMS plans. There was no safety
Yeah,
mitigation in place. There was no nothing. Um, it's funny you talk about hours there. When I went to work for Piedmont Aviation in the big prop section, so we worked on we worked on G1s and regional airline type aircraft. There was one crew chief and four of us in our crew, and we maintained four airlines.
yeah,
And 12-hour days were the minimum and
yeah.
the norm.
Just to be
And you
expected.
were in there on Saturdays. And I remember becoming the road mechanic. And there's some weeks I do 3 or 4 back to back to back, like trips, just like,
Yep.
and, luckily, knock on wood, never anything got tore up. But, the industry started realizing that, yeah, we got to have things in place. We got to have
Yeah.
procedures in place. We got to give people time off. We got to see the red flags.
Yep.
We got to call a timeout and slow them down again because it's, you know, when a mistake does happen in aviation, unfortunately, it's big.
It's a big
It's big,
mistake.
whether it gets out of the hangar or not.
Right.
Gets a lot of spot. It gets a lot of light put on. A lot of attention.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it's something that, none of us, anybody that touches an airplane needs to understand that risk.
Oh yeah,
No,
yeah.
nobody is, free from that potentially happening to them. It seems like when things happen in the aviation space, as far as, incidents or crashes or things like that, almost like it comes in waves, there'll be 2 or 3 of them together at once, and it's, varying reasons why. Um, but it really just comes down to everybody just understanding what we're doing every day, the potential that's out there, and watching each other's back.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's why I really say when I'm walking through a hangar, I'm not down there to work on that airplane necessarily, but at the same time, I'm always watching around. I'm looking for anything I can do and just give somebody a heads up, or maybe help spot somebody, like walk around a plane with a piece of equipment, things like that. So there's a lot of movement in this industry, but, all in all, it's still very good. And I don't want to do anything to deter
Oh no.
young
Absolutely.
folks from coming into it. I wanted to back up just a quick second and just talk quick about that work ethic portion of the discussion. I think that's something us as like hiring managers and people on our side of the fence that we can really start to identify early on is that work ethic. You said that when you went in looking for a job, you were looking for a truck driving job.
Yeah.
Because, that's the experience you had. Well, somebody that was interviewing you had the forethought enough to say, there was always that section on your application,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like, what do you like to do in your free time? And this is something that I always kind of went to early on. I would look at the list of qualification, but when you're hiring a young person who's like, in their early 20s, let's say, they don't have a lot of qualification.
Yep.
So I immediately go down to that. What do you like to do in your free time? And the second that I hear like, oh, I'd like riding dirt bikes, and, I rebuilt an old truck with my dad, and I like working on engines and fixing this. And what I'm hearing you say is you're good with working with your hands and you understand, mechanicals. And that's a big green flag for me when I'm looking to hire somebody, because I'm like, I can train that.
Yeah, you can teach skills.
I can teach
You
those
can't
skills.
teach work ethic.
Right. The work ethic, and I've been a strong advocate of this, and I've told so many people this exact thing, but like the work ethic, I can't teach you.
Yeah.
Your dad and your grandpa and your uncles
gotta
and,
come from
and your
within.
brothers, they taught you that a long time ago.
Yeah.
And we need to identify that too. So I also feel fortunate to be, kind of like raised in the Rust Belt up in Michigan, because we did nothing but watch our, mentors in our life, like our mothers and fathers and grandpas and grandmas. All we did was watch them go to work. Nobody in my family was a professional aviation person, though my grandfather did have his private pilot's license. They weren't professional workers. My granddad worked at Dow Chemical for like 50 years, and retired from there. Like I said, my mom worked at Kellogg long term for a long time and retired from there. My dad is still a school teacher to this day. He's in his 70s. And we're like, Dad, you need to hang it up. But he just loves doing that.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, what would I do with myself? I just love going to work. And I'm like, I'm a lot like that. It's like, I know I'm not anywhere near retirement, but at the same time, I'm like, as long as I love what I'm doing, I hope I can keep doing it forever.
Oh yeah. This is great. This sales job is the greatest job I've had.
It's fantastic.
I love doing this, going out and meeting people and seeing operations. And, I still can give back to the industry, knowledge that I've got through the years. And, but I'm not, crawling around in the airplanes no more. So that's,
I kind of learned that about myself. That. It's interesting. You say, I know you're an A&P mechanic. And, it's kind of funny. I was just thinking to myself while we're talking here, like November 7th which was just 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Marks 25 years in aviation for me.
Yeah.
I started in the year 2000, November 7th, working in Battle Creek at Duncan. And so I literally just went over my 25-year mark myself, but I am not an A&P.
Yeah.
And some people are like, well, you must be a pilot. I'm like, I'm not a pilot.
Yeah.
They're like, well, what have you done for 25 years? I started out in the mods world. You don't have to be an A&P.
Nope.
So you can come in and this is them making an opportunity for somebody who has skills, but maybe not necessarily like aviation skills yet. And so I was able to get my foot in the door and figure out, I really like this business. And so, I got started then. And I was probably hands on the airplane for 10 years. First 10 years, just working in the shop, stripping panels, recovering, cutting carpet, doing cabinet work, things like that. I really liked the business. But through that 10 years, what I really found out about myself going through those like pivotal, like, your 20s and early 30s, you start to learn a lot about yourself. And what I found is I love working with people. That's always been a big thing for me. So quickly I went into a leadership role, started leading teams of people who worked, and I was still, kind of in the mix and working. But for me to be able to give back to somebody else and like train them and how to do things, I had a really a high sense of, safety. I knew what we were there to do. I knew the business a little bit at that point. But I wanted to continue to learn, but I also wanted to be giving back.
Yeah.
That is something that I found out about myself at that time that I know is just a part of who I am. Like I'll never leave. I'll never not have that in my life. And so as I went on, I was like, how do I work this into a daily to where I can do what I love the most and stay in aviation? And that started turning into some travel opportunities for me. Mostly when I got out to Utah, I really started hitting the street, hitting the ground running in Utah with the travel. And so when I got out there, we were building a new business out there. It was a real small shop. We had to get out on the road and start, just kind of promoting what we're doing and try and bring some customers in. That was my first real opportunity with something that looked like what you and I do now.
Yep.
The traveling sales, right? As a regional manager. And so I got out there, I started doing some travel, mostly in the western part of the United States, surrounding states around Utah and then west of there. So I was from the Pacific Northwest all the way down to Southern California and maybe all the way over to like, Colorado. And I loved it. I loved going in, talking with customers, explaining the business. It's a very solution-based business. So, what you're looking for is, folks that, have maintenance needs or things coming up, or maybe they're on the fence about doing like a paint or an interior event with their airplane, which was my background. And so I could talk about that. But when I started doing that, I realized that there's areas that I don't speak super fluently in the business. And I'm like, oh, I need to learn more about that. And so I think, if you find folks that are like that, who want to learn, continue to learn,
Oh yeah,
and want to stay in aviation, but understand the business and what we're trying to do overall, you got a real powerful thing there.
yeah. It's funny you talk about giving back and giving advice and helping. So, luckily with us traveling, we're not always just out knocking on doors trying to get business for Stevens, right? I don't know, about a month ago or so, maybe a month and a half, probably longer than that now, 2 months ago, I got lucky enough to go down to Embry-Riddle, down to
Right.
their facility in Daytona.
Great school.
Oh yeah, awesome school, probably one of the best. And it was for a recruiting type event, and me and Phil went, and a bunch of students came out, and they were very eager to just listen and hear and have someone talk to them.
Yeah.
And the funny thing they kept asking, because Phil directed them all to me, right? He's like, well, he's a mechanic, so most of them we were in their maintenance schools where we were doing the specific event, but we had a mix of mechanics and pilots and all kinds of stuff. But they were like, what kind of advice would you give us? So
Great question.
I said, I tell you what, the best thing I could tell you to do, as soon as you get your license and you graduate and you get your first job, I said, find all the senior guys in the shop and snuggle up to them and just be a sponge.
Yep. So
And
important.
I said, because, there's tons of experience. There's tons of people in the industry that are wanting to share and help you grow, but you got to be willing to take what they tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's up to you what you do with it.
Yeah. It's such an important part of our business is the pass down of knowledge,
Yeah.
Probably in every business, right?
Oh yeah.
The pass down of knowledge. And there's two things that happen there always is you've got to find somebody who's willing to learn, who wants to learn and ask the questions and not be a 22-year-old know-it-all, but somebody who says, this is a new business for me. I want to learn everything that I can, and these guys can really help me. Okay. And then there's got to be also that senior technician that's willing to teach.
Oh yeah.
And there's not always that. And I know you and we feel the obligation to give back to the younger generation, but not everybody does. And the truth of the matter is we're getting real close to losing a lot of our
absolutely.
talented people. And we need to try and squeeze as much of that knowledge out of them as we can before they decide to retire.
Yeah.
And so, and again, that comes back to us needing to get more young people in the industry, get that knowledge out there. And, this isn't always an evolving business. It's not the same now, certainly, than it was, 25, 30 years ago. But at the same time, there's a part of it where all that old practical knowledge that will forever be, something that is part of our business as well. So
yeah, I think we're at a pivotal point as an industry.
We are.
I really do, because it's weird because I don't feel old, but I'm an old timer now. You got 25 years. I got 38.
It adds up quick, doesn't it?
And I look back now and I go, wow, 38 years. But I think our industry, to your point, is very pivotal right now. You got guys who are looking at, I'm starting to look at retirement.
Sure.
It's not tomorrow,
Yeah,
it's
we
not
all
next
are.
week, but
But we should be at least.
I'm starting to plan it and think about it, right?
Right.
And,
Yeah.
You've got guys who are on the way out. You got these young kids on their way in, and too, even the airplanes now. So we still got old enough airplanes that's got the old technology.
Mhm.
We got new airplanes coming out with the new technology. So you've got old guys, so to speak, that know the older airplanes. These young kids come out that know the new generation stuff.
Got to put them together.
But we got to find somewhere to mesh it together.
We got to put them together
and continue to make it work, because these airplanes are lasting longer, and these younger kids, they depend on the MDC, the maintenance diagnostic computer, to tell them what's wrong with it. Whereas the old salty mechanic depends on doing the old tried and true troubleshooting.
Well, and I think that's why the show is so important, right? It's really why we're here.
Yeah.
We want to get out there and we want to be able to communicate a message on a broader scale and get some interest in aviation, but also be a space too where people can come and just kind of listen to like relevant information. We got a lot of great ideas coming up. You know, this is kind of our pilot show, just getting to know us, two plane guys. But you know, we've got a list of really amazing.
I'm excited about the guests
that we're going to bring on.
Yeah, if we can score some of these guests, people are going to be impressed. We bring on
from all different backgrounds.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and so it's always going to be like I'm going to call it a loosely based aviation show. We're going to talk about a lot of airplane stuff. We're going to also talk about music and cars and things like that too, I'm sure, as we get into these conversations.
Our travels and our
things that we
adventures and our travels, right?
Current events, all of those things. But yeah, it's going to be really good. So I'm excited. I can't wait. You know, for everybody out there, thanks for tuning in. First episode. We can't wait to see you. You know, hit a subscribe. Follow us.
Absolutely.
I want you to see all the good things that are to come. You can catch us at Two Plane Guys on Spotify and YouTube.
Yep.
And hopefully that'll get a little bit more fluent to say. This is the very first show. It's the first time I've ever said that. But at Two Plane Guys on Spotify, you can find us on streaming platforms, things like that too. Rick, man, it's great. Always talking to you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I enjoyed it. Look forward to many more.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.